It says live video is starting, and you are now live.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Now we continue our webinars about resilience, and today in Comres project we have topic volunteering, and our partner from Italy, Lorma. I introduce Maritza, so you will provide this webinar, and I will happy to give you this time for you and for Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will first introduce myself. I'm Marica Barbieri, Development Officer of Lorma, and today I wasn't really supposed to handle the webinar, as my colleague has set a presentation, but of course, while we are waiting for her, because she will join us in, I guess, a couple of minutes, I can just maybe start sharing something about the theme. One second. So in general, regarding one second, because my colleague is going to connect in 20 seconds, I guess. So maybe I can just wait for her. Fortunately, when there are like internet issues, it's always like impossible to fix it. But in general, just to start maybe with the topic, as of course, we have a presentation, but I'm not the one who is in charge of presenting it. We could just start like presenting a little bit how the what is the theme about. So I will start maybe just with some statistics regarding the volunteering in Italy in the last years. And then it would be nice to maybe present a good practice regarding the topic. So there is a very nice sentence, which is like regarding the theme in general of resilience and volunteering, which is we make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give, from Winston Churchill. So of course, this sentence is a sort of like, how can I say, summary of what the volunteering means in general in life. Of course, we are an organization set in Milan, Lorma, and we work with volunteers, and we work with European projects in many fields, from sport, education, social innovation, social entrepreneurship. So we every day have contacts with people from different targets, and starting from children to up to seniors, and in the middle, of course, adults and young people. And one of our main goals is, first of all, to always like push people to try to get involved in European projects. But secondly, to then, starting from these experiences, to maybe find like a sort of inspiration to get starting with the volunteering activities connected to not only European projects, but as Comres, but in general in their personal and living life. For example, from my perspective, I didn't have many occasions to volunteer, as I was starting actually, let's say, volunteering when I was younger in an organization related to the women leadership. And it was a very important experience, which then brought me to the job that I'm doing at the moment, which is again related to the, let's say, development of strategies to write European projects to support countries and to strengthen intercultural dialogue. So again, as the main topic of this webinar is volunteering and the resilience, I will start with maybe some dates, some data. And again, I'm very sorry that like we don't have in this moment a presentation, PowerPoint presentation, but unfortunately it has happened that my colleague is having internet problems, but once she will manage it, she will join the webinar and she will actually share the PowerPoint with our presentation. So meanwhile, what I can do is to, of course, share this knowledge about the topic, but unfortunately it will be everything oral. So I guess it's not the same, but I will try my best to make it as much, let's say, interesting as possible. So again, like speaking about Italy, because as I mentioned before, we are actually an organization from Milan, which is in the northern part of Italy. From the data from the 2017, actually what was held that, of course, the percentage of volunteering in Italy are not that high. And also another important thing is related to the difference of volunteering depending on the regions. Indeed, like, for example, I am coming from the southern part of Italy, and we have a very strong, let's say, volunteering organizations and people who work to support others. But there are differences with the north, with the central part of Italy, and of course also with the islands. The nonprofit sector has and gives a very strong contribution to this topic. In general, like, of course, it starts from these organizations, and the nonprofit sector continues so to expand with a higher average annual growth rates than for market-oriented enterprises, and both in terms of number of enterprises and number of employees. As a result, the importance of nonprofit institutions increases compared to the whole of the Italian production system, raising from the 5.8% in 2001 to 8% in 2017 for number of units, and from 4.8% in 2001 to 7% in 2017 for the number of employees. So in general, of course, as when we talk about volunteering, we have to mention we are focusing on the third sector, which actually works to empower this movement and this, let's say, belief, because volunteering is not just something, of course, connected to data, connected to numbers, but it's something that you have to like have inside. That's why at the beginning of my speech, I have talked about the importance of starting, for example, joining European projects to get to know like these realities which work with people and for people, nonprofit organization in general, third sector. And then from these experiences, it's easier to get inspired to let's be involved then in volunteering activities. I will go back to numbers in 2 seconds, but I would like to share first an example of how, again, traveling and going abroad for European projects can be an opportunity to then discover the volunteering world. I have been joining loads of international trainings and youth exchanges. And one of the things that I have noticed the most is that, first of all, everyone was saying how these experiences were life-changing. But secondly, everyone after these experiences were starting looking for volunteering activities. Because of course, even if people are maybe not working in the third sector or in a profit sector, then they want to not to leave their job. Maybe they don't want this to be their job, as for example, is my case, because I'm working for non-profit in the non-profit sector. But maybe they want to keep their job and meanwhile try to contribute in this work, in this field. And so, for example, I have loads of stories and examples of people who started traveling more and more. And then after a European training, international training, they went back to their hometown and cities in Italy, starting from Sardinia to Puglia to Lombardia to any region. And they decided to maybe think of a project for their community. And they were contacting me saying, like, for example, how they were grateful for not just the opportunity to travel, but then to change their mindset, change their life. That's why they call them life-changing experience. And another important thing is related to the importance of the volunteers for the society, because again, we can't just focus on the third sector, but it's really important to then try to involve people who are not working in the sector and that maybe don't know anything about it. Because I guess the strongest reason why maybe someone hasn't had the volunteering experiences is because there is not a knowledge about that. So the raising awareness is probably one of the most important things to do. And for this, again, we have lots of European projects which with this goal and objective to strengthen, to empower, and to have a higher and higher number of volunteers in all countries. So I will go back to some numbers just to explain how the situation is. Of course, I'm starting from my country. The actors, so of the third sector in Italy, expressed the need to be recognized not only as entities that provide services, but above all as subjects who, through their action of animation of the territory and support to citizens, contribute in the essential way to well-being and cohesion of the communities served, with a view to building a truly participatory and shared welfare. So, starting from the 2016, the growth of the number of institutions, of course, was more sustained in the southern part and in the northwest and in the center, with like an average of 3%. The most dynamic regions in this are Campania, Molise, and the autonomous province of Bolzano, Calabria, and Lazio. So this is strongly connected to the thing I was just mentioning, that in Italy we have many regions, and also in each region there is maybe a stronger or less strong movement of volunteering and of non-profit organization. But of course, the goal is to have this number grow and increase, not only in each region, but of course in Italy and in Europe worldwide. So that's again why the European projects have a very key role in the, let's say, empowerment and in the increasing number of volunteers. There was a decrease in Sardinia, but and the less extent in my region, actually Puglia. Despite the more sustained dynamics of the south, the localization of non-profit institution is very concentrated in the territory, with over the 50% of the institutions active in the regions of the north, against 26.7% of southern and island Italy. And again, the reason why we have probably this division in Italy between the north and the southern part is connected, first of all, to opportunities, and secondly, also to the know-how, because maybe sometimes people don't know that they have the opportunity to do volunteering, because there is not maybe a good communication regarding this topic. Again, I am living in the southern part and working in the northern part, and I have been traveling for many countries for the European projects. And one of the things that I've seen, like in person, is that in the southern part, the volunteering system works. We have many non-profit organizations and many people working in this field, but of course, there should be more communication about this. Okay, my colleague has just arrived. And,
hello, Marika. Nice to meet you. I'm very sorry for being late, but I'm here now.
Okay. Okay, Sara, thank you. I will just maybe end with a little last comment regarding what I was mentioning, and then I will give you the floor and the word.
Okay, very good, because I have also a presentation. So maybe can you do a small recap about what were you speaking about, and I can join you? Great.
Yeah, of course. No, I was just saying that again. I was saying that I'm sorry I have no presentation because we were waiting for you, but internet connection is always something you can't count on. So I was saying, yeah, I was just like giving some data about the situation of the volunteering in Italy, giving some, like also sharing a personal point of view regarding the topic, as I'm from the south. And but I work in the north, and I have been traveling for the European projects, and I have seen it's not just data, that sometimes there is a lack of knowledge about the topic. So that's why there's like 25% of difference of people who are doing activism, volunteering in the northern area rather than in the southern. And I was just mentioning also the importance of traveling with the European projects and international training, because starting from that experiences, people get to know that activism is possible. They get closer to the third sector, to these realities, and maybe they start then after international training to do volunteering. And I was just giving some examples of people who have joined some trainings with us, with Lorma. And now for example, I have a friend in Sardinia who is now organizing a project, is an engineer. So it's like, it doesn't have nothing to do with, let's say, the not third sector, but is working now in both things as a volunteer, because after international training in Montenegro with us, it was a life-changing experience, and he was like trying to say that he wants to change things in his community. So the importance of the Erasmus Plus, like with the volunteering word. So this was like more or less, and then I was giving just some numbers, and I will just conclude with the COVID, saying that the volunteering has never stopped, even during the COVID pandemic. And let's say that its role has become even more important right now after this global crisis. So thank you, and I'll give you the floor, and the PowerPoint, I guess it's more interesting than me just speaking, but yeah. Okay.
No, I really thank you again for waiting for me, and I'm sorry, sorry again for coming late. I'm here now. I would like to start maybe connecting to what you were speaking about. So people that start to do also Erasmus Plus project, etc. Thankful to volunteer. I start maybe presenting myself, and maybe you can also share your experience, because I think that for a lot of points our experience is really connected. And now we will present ourselves. So I'm Sara from Lorma. I started to know Erasmus Plus project because I was volunteering in an organization, a sport organization for people with intellectual disabilities. And while I was volunteering there, I decided that I wanted to improve my knowledge, my skills in my volunteer experience. And so I decided to join Erasmus Plus training that was called Sport Diplomacy Academy. That is where me and Marika met like 3 years ago. And so, yes, for sure, this is a topic that really touched me because if I'm here now, it's because 3 years ago I decided to join this Erasmus Plus training. And if I join that is because I was volunteering in this association. So, Marika, what about you? If you want to share also your experience related to that. And I'm very grateful that you are here connected with me because I think you can really share a very good experience and a very good example to everybody here.
Thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned before, well, I'm working for Lorma as development officer, and yeah, it's the same for me. I mean, I didn't have many volunteering experiences before starting working with Lorma, apart one related to the women leadership. I mentioned this at the beginning when I was starting. And it's in general, I mean, starting from the high school, I was very, how can I say, attentive to my community and to my reality. And there is this sentence which I really like. Again, I really feel it because I'm from the southern part. It's good to have a reason, to stay here, but also an occasion to go abroad and see different things. Sorry.
Okay, so maybe I can start sharing the presentation. And Marika, I think you are the host. Can you let me share?
Yes, of course. And I was saying just to hand before my phone started ringing, like that. Yeah, I needed really to find an occasion to bring a change in my community, and at the same point to see different ones. And that's why I have decided to travel and to go abroad 3 years ago for the Sport Diplomacy Academy. And because all my experiences abroad had been before for studying, like a student exchange, Erasmus, but the Erasmus Plus word is something different. And I think that it has, they're both very important, but the power of the Erasmus Plus, I think it's different because really you have 1 week, and in 1 week, for example, you really can change your life. Also with Erasmus, you can change your life, but if you leave them, you can see that there's a different perspective of things after both experiences. So thank you. I'll give you the word again.
Okay, so we will enter really in the topic of this presentation of this webinar of today. Volunteering, how to build win-win relationships. This is a very important point related to resilience and to resilience in NGO, because we really think and we really believe that volunteers can make the difference in your organization. It doesn't matter if you are a big organization, a small organization, an old one, a new one. Volunteers can always bring something good in your NGO, but it's very a lot up to you. And now we will see why. So we will try to answer to these questions, like how to attract and work with volunteers, what's the added value of having volunteers in the organization, what are potential challenges connected to volunteering, and tips and tricks for building a healthy cooperation with volunteers. So we started to look in the dictionary and try to understand which is the description, the normal description of a volunteer. And in the dictionary, we can read that a volunteer is a person who freely offers to take part in an enterprise or undertake a task, and also a person who works for an organization without being paid. So we started from this description of volunteer. This is the normal description we can normally hear about. And we realized that maybe in these descriptions, a lot of other points are missing. Because what we realized also before COVID is that a lot of NGOs, a lot of people were looking at like for people who are not paid, like people who can come in your organization and do work without being paid. But if we look for volunteers just for that, we are missing really the value of volunteers, and we also miss what a volunteer really can be and really can bring in our organization. So what we want to do tonight, me and Marika, is try to show what we can add to this description of a volunteer. Because okay, we can start from this idea that a volunteer is someone that is not paid and that freely offers to do something. But to make really values, we have to add a lot of other things. Okay, we started to explain our personal experience. I would like to add something more, just to have some points to think about. And also because I would like, with this short story about myself, to make also you thinking about your personal experiences. I am a volunteer. I started to volunteer when I was 16 in this organization for people with intellectual disability. I started without any expectations. I started to go one day just because a friend of mine invited me and said, come, it's good. We are going to help these people with disability to go to ski, to go in a competition. We are going to the mountains. And so I decided to join. Why I decided to stay? I decided to stay because I felt good and necessary. What I was doing, I felt was something good for the others, good for me, and also necessary. Like what I was doing was something that if I was not doing, somebody else had to do that. I felt really appreciated. I felt good. I felt that people around me were happy when I was there. And so I started to be motivated. I started to be motivated because of all these feelings of good, of being appreciated and feeling necessary, and that I was doing something that really could change. I saw after some moments that I was feeling good, etc. But also what I was doing had a value. What I was doing was something necessary, but also that really had a value, really could change the situation of people. And so I started to feel also that what I was doing was a responsibility, because if I was not there, something was missing. So my experience in volunteering was very good. I'm still volunteering in this association now. I'm very happy about that. But when I started to do Erasmus Plus project trainings, etc., I started to also realize what I was missing in my experience of volunteering. And what I realized is that in this experience, I was missing sharing and reflecting. I was doing a lot of things. Every month, more and more responsibility, more activities, etc. I was feeling good, but in a moment, I realized that I was not really sharing what I was feeling with other people. I was just doing. And also, I was not really reflecting about what I was doing. Another point related to that, I realized that in the association, we were really focused on doing things that are necessary, that are making us feeling good, but nobody was really asking me and other volunteers how we were feeling. This is what I realized I was missing. I'm still volunteering because in the end I like what I'm doing, but I realized that maybe if someone would ask to share our emotion, to share how we were feeling, to share if something could be done in a different way, maybe the value we were bringing to to the association can become more, and also we could maybe attract more people and work in a better way. I don't know if Marika, in this point, can you share something about your personal experience?
Yeah, I actually thank you first of all for sharing. I actually wanted to add not a personal experience, but a comment, which is actually coming like from a thought due to my personal experience. That like when I think about volunteering, I think about motivation. I mean, that's the key word, because we have different types of motivation, and the ones that when you do volunteerings you are empowering is the intrinsic motivation. And the intrinsic motivation, I think it's probably one of the most important things in life, because it drives you in all your choices to the flow, and the flow should be like the maximum for a person. So when you are doing something because you don't have like an expectation, you don't have a salary, but you're doing it for yourself, and in this case for the others. So I think that being a volunteering is of course an occasion for others to be supported, but when you do it, you're helping yourself first of all. So this is what I'm actually feeling when I'm doing activities like this, that I'm really helping myself to find and empower my intrinsic motivation. And regarding the missing parts, I can say that this is like a thing that in all sectors is missing, to ask to people who are collaborating for anything, how are you feeling? And this is something that could be done starting from companies to like any kind of sector, but here is even more important because again, people are very into it. So it's important also to ask how people are feeling, because if you're volunteering, it doesn't mean that maybe there's not something going well, you know. So it's something to be very careful. Also, because sharing is the first way to improve things. If you share, then you can fix, you can improve, and then everybody has a good contribution from this.
Yes, exactly. And also because, as we said before, a volunteer is a person that is really free and decide to join just because, as you said, is motivated. So try to constantly understand if he is feeling good or not. I think is very, very important. And what we can do, what I normally do when I do training in person with people and we speak about volunteers, is start to ask questions about ourselves. This is very good to analyze our experience as volunteer, but also to analyze how we can then work with volunteers, because it's very important to start from our personal experience, analyze it, and then realize that what we felt, how we felt, what we are living, maybe is the situations that, quite as Marika said, a lot of people are living. So what I normally do, for example, in trainings, when there are a lot of people, is, for example, do a speed dating exercise in which people sit in couple and speak for 1 or 2 minutes about their experiences with other participants, guided by these questions. These are just examples, but of course you can add more if you want. You can start to think about a personal experience you had as a volunteer in volunteering. Then you can think about the best experience you did, the best experience you had. Can be a moment, can be an event, can be an experience, can be a global experience as a volunteer in an organization. And also, what I really ask people to do is try to think about the worst experience you had about volunteering. This is also very important because focusing on what went wrong in your personal experience as a volunteer, why you decided to stop, why you didn't felt good, is very, very good. And if you can really go deep in that experience, if you can really um, understand why your experience as a volunteer was bad, because can happen. Normally people try always to see the best, to see, yes, this experience as a volunteer was very good, but try also to think about what was not working, what was bad, because from that you can start to build a very good program for your volunteer in your organizations. Try to avoid mistakes, try to avoid past experience that make you feel bad. Another question you can ask that is very important is, what were you looking for when you started volunteer? Because sometimes working in an NGO, etc., looking for people that volunteer just because we need them, we don't think about what these volunteers are looking for, but just what we need. Try to start from this point, try to start from what the volunteers are looking for, what you were looking for. Is very important to decide how to treat volunteers, which task ask them to work on, which task is better to avoid them to do. And another question is, what were your tasks? You were prepared to manage what they asked you to do? Because this is something, as manager of NGOs, as working in an NGOs, the mistake we do sometimes is trying to think, okay, this task that a volunteer can do, I will ask. But it's not true. Sometimes volunteers are not prepared to do the task we are asking for. Maybe for us they are very easy, they are very funny, they are tasks that everybody can do. But really, we have to ask to our volunteers, are you prepared for it? Do you need training? Do you need to know something before starting to do this task? Even the easiest one, even things that for us are very, very easy, please try to ask to all your volunteers if they feel ready to do this task, if they need explanation, if they are feeling good. Because sometimes this is why a lot of volunteers leave, a lot of volunteers are not feeling good, because we ask them to do easy tasks, but maybe they are not prepared for it. I don't know if Marika, do you have other questions that maybe we can advise to ask to ourselves or to participants, etc., to reflect about the volunteer experience?
Yeah, I think that another thing which could be very helpful to take notes of is to let people and volunteers share their experiences to support each other. So what I mean, for example, your organization, think if there is someone who has 3 years experience, someone who has 3 months experience, and give them a moment weekly or monthly to share their knowledge, their doubts, questions. So another question I would say you can ask to yourself or during the planning of volunteering program is, am I giving enough space to volunteers to connect with each other and to learn from each other? So also to create a sense of community between the volunteers themselves, because we don't have to take for granted that they share, because maybe someone is shy, someone is speaking a lot. So be sure that you're giving to them the opportunity to do some networking between them and to create this space, because otherwise maybe someone doesn't want to share because it's shy, and so you lose an opportunity to learn from each other. So this is I think I would ask. And I really how can I say, agree with the important thing of sharing worse experiences, because yeah, again, we always focus on the good things, but the things we learn the most are the bad ones, when we are not able to manage something. There we learn a lot. So yeah, don't be shy, let's say, to share bad experiences, because it's not a shame if there are mistakes made, but it's, let's say, an opportunity to grow together. So yeah, this is what I would actually add. That's all.
Yes, Marika, I completely agree with you, and I thank you for saying that. Don't feel shame if you want to share that your experience as a volunteer was something bad, because this is a very good point to start and create better experience for other people. Okay. So, of course, we have to manage all these volunteers, and this can look a lot of work: recruiting volunteers, register them, assigning tasks, motivate, then say thank you. More and more volunteers you have, more and more work to do you have, not less. This is something we have to keep in mind. Having volunteers doesn't mean that you will have less work to do because they are doing this work for you. That's not true. There is a lot of work that you will have to do to manage all these volunteers. So if you want to recruit volunteers, try to understand that it's not because you need someone to do things and you will do less, but you need someone that brings values in your organization. Of course, it's also true that we can't manage everything alone. So if you have a lot of volunteers, what you can do is hire a volunteer coordinator or find another volunteer that can take this kind of responsibility. Having a volunteer coordinator is very important because the skills a volunteer coordinator have are skills that are not given for granted, and if he can really use them and manage the volunteers in a good way, the value they can bring is a lot. So concretely, what a volunteer coordinator should do is be an excellent communicator, create networking and present the organization, present the activity, present the event, has to be experienced. Okay. Sometimes the mistake we do is find new volunteers and then assign this role of volunteer coordinator to one of them. This is not the best way to work because the volunteer coordinator has experience to be has been a volunteer before and know how to manage all the other volunteers. The volunteer coordinator, as we said, has to be empathic, to have empathy, because as we said before, the more important things to do is trying to understand how the volunteers are feeling and how to make them feeling good. All the things to do, all the tasks, all the concrete things we have to do can manage from all the others, but we really need someone that can understand the needs of the volunteer, concretely speak with them, communicate with them, try to understand their needs, their expectations. And also, of course, the volunteer coordinator has the capacity to inspire and motivate the others. This is very important. The mistake we do a lot of time, because it's a lot of work, is just coordinate volunteers in what they have to do. You have to do that, the other volunteer has to do that, this volunteer in the morning, this volunteer in the evening, timetable, etc. The coordinator volunteers really have to inspire and motivate the others, even more in the bad days, even more in the bad situations, like as we said a lot of time during the last webinars, during COVID time. During COVID time, NGOs that had a very good volunteer coordinator could keep volunteers together. NGOs that were just managing volunteers in concrete tasks without asking them, motivating them, inspiring them, lost all the volunteers during COVID. Related to that, really related to that, is the fact that the decision to volunteer is an emotional one. People that decide to volunteer because they feel something, okay? But what they feel can be really, really very different from one to the other. So the volunteers are motivated from different things that can be for someone more concrete, for other ones more related to values, but all the motivations are important and all the motivations have the same value. So what we have to really understand is that a volunteer that is motivated because of very high values, etc., have really the same importance as the volunteer that maybe decide to join just because there is a friend that is volunteering and want to have fun. The mistakes that a lot of NGOs do sometimes is give more importance to the volunteers that are deciding to join because they really believe in the organization, they really believe in the aim of the organization, they really believe in the values of the organization, and underestimate volunteers that maybe are joining just because they want to improve their skills or have fun, or the volunteers have a value. Try to understand what motivates them is very important, and through this motivation we can understand which is the best activity and task these volunteers can do, in which event involve them, in which events involve other ones, in which activity, etc. The most important motivations, the most motivations that normally guide people who volunteers, is because they want to contribute to a cause they believe in. They want to learn new skills. Maybe they want to fulfill business or social expectations. They are motivated by a desire of change in the world, or change in their life. They want to have fun, enjoying what they are doing, meeting friends, meeting new people. There are also some volunteers that, for example, volunteers because they need to show that they did some hours of volunteering because of university friendship, etc. These are also very valid volunteers, and all these motivations are very different. We really need to understand why a volunteer is coming. This is something that we don't ask, we don't think about. This is very important. Try to understand why a volunteer is coming and which is the motivations is the base to create a good program for volunteers, a good volunteers team, etc. So when volunteers arrive, ask them what they are looking for. Marika, do you want to add something about that? I think you have a lot of experience in this.
Yeah, I wanted to. Thank you so much. No, I think this part is very, very important. Even if it can look easy, I mean, just asking, it's very hard because this is connected to the, let's say, being shy. There are some people who want to volunteer because they need to meet new people, because maybe they live in a small town, like my case, and they want to know people, they want to have an opportunity to grow without having to move to a big city, for example. So it's really, really important not to take for granted the motivation that is driving someone to do this experience, and to strengthen that motivation without judging. One of the things that in volunteering has to be the goal is not to let anyone feel judged, but just like to give value to these people because they're giving value to your organization. Of course, like an organization, when you have to hire and handle and gesture and manage new people, it's always like effort. It means that, of course, you have to put a lot of energies in this. But the contribution from volunteers is something that I think it's not just about like time work. it's bigger, because if you create a community around the purpose, around an organization, it can just grow. It's impossible that it decreases, because if people find in volunteering a sort of second family, they will never give up. So the aim and the goal is to let them know that they can come even for just meet new friends, and then maybe they will discover also about the cause, and they will contribute to the cause. Because sometimes, again, people say, okay, I'm not volunteering because I don't know anything about disability, or I don't know anything about another topic. And so they say, I can't volunteer because yeah, I have no skills about that. It's not a problem. I mean, you go, you meet new people, and you learn from people how to support these causes. So it's really something, how can I say, that has to be changed, because from my experience, I've seen that people are focusing too much on sometimes the causes are not on the people. They have to go together. All these reasons have to be matched, and a program around them has to be created. And this is something that can lead an organization, again, just to grow and to involve people from different backgrounds, which is another important thing. Like when you have volunteers with different backgrounds and experiences, the value of the sharing increases, because of course, learning from different person, different perspective is something that we should all aim at, to know people different from us, to grow. So yeah, that's it.
Yes, and also, as you said, this fact that people that are meeting and they are motivated from different motivations, meeting together can enrich each other. Having all the volunteers that are motivated just because they want to learn new skills, maybe it's not the best. But also, it's not the best if you have just volunteers that are volunteering because they believe in the values and in the cause of the organization. Having a mix of people that are motivated from different perspectives can really enrich the organization and can really enrich the team of the volunteers in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now we want to analyze a bit also why volunteers leave. This is very important. We really hope that this not happen. Maybe if we follow all the steps before, this will not happen, but it's not always sure. Sometimes we have to accept that some volunteers are leaving. It's okay. It's normal. It's the cycle. But try to understand also why they are leaving, for example, is very important, because sometimes we just say, okay, it's normal that sometimes people leave because they don't have time, because they are changing their life. But trying to understand really why a volunteer left, spend some time in understand why this volunteer left, can really enrich the organizations and try to understand how to better work in the future. So here there are a lot of different motivations, like volunteers maybe felt underutilized. This is something that can happen. Okay, sometimes we really think that we need volunteers because we want to make them do a lot of things. But then in the reality, if we are not good to organize the task and to organize the work, and for example, we ask 10 volunteers to come for an event, and during these events, five of them do nothing because in the reality we didn't really need them, maybe people decide to leave. So this is something that sometimes we don't think about, and we always think more and more volunteer we have, it's better, but it's not always like that. We really have to find a balance. We really have to find tasks that volunteer can do, because if we ask people to come to this event and then when they are there they are do nothing, maybe they can leave. Maybe they can feel that what they are doing is not useful and we don't need them, and they decide to leave. Other motivations can be that the physical environment was not supporting their effort, that the atmosphere was impersonal, tense, or cold. So people arrive there, but they don't feel that they are supported. They feel that around them the atmosphere is not good, that people are not supporting each other, etc. This is something also very important. So when we ask volunteers to come, we have to work a lot on the team building of the team of volunteers, but the teams of volunteers really feel how the organization is feeling. So it's very important that with the volunteers, but also with the colleagues, etc., try to keep a good atmosphere, because volunteers can really feel it. And even if we are treating them very good, but if, for example, they see that me and Marika, that our colleague, are treating us very bad, it doesn't matter if we are treating the volunteers good. They can feel this atmosphere, and maybe they decide to leave anyway. Take in consideration what they are proposing. Okay, it's impossible to do all the suggestions that the volunteers are bringing, but take in consideration what they are proposing, what they are saying, their ideas, because otherwise they can really feel that we just need them to do stuff that we don't want to do. Try to consider what they think, if they want to bring small changes, etc. Try to really consider what they think and show that what they are saying for us is important. Maybe they don't see connection between one work and another, one day and another work day. So for example, one day we ask them to do a task, the other day we ask them to do another task. They can't, for example, follow a project. They can't see the results of what they are doing. This is something that make them leaving. So also in this situation, try to think about some projects, some events they can follow and see the results of what they are doing. Seeing the results is very important, even more if you are just volunteering, and so you have to be more motivated, and you really want to see that what you are doing is bringing something, bringing to the end of an event, to the end of a project, etc. Sometimes, if you have a lot of volunteers, maybe you have long-term volunteers, try to create a group where the new volunteer can feel inside the group, and not like always new one. Try to create a group where everybody is feeling good and is feeling that can really enter in the group, really enter in the organization. Other reasons why volunteers can leave is because maybe they didn't want to leave, but they decide to do it because they feel that they are not welcome anymore. They are not feeling good, but they don't know how to express that. For example, as we were saying at the start of this webinar, if we don't ask them how they are feeling, can be that maybe they are liking the organization, they are liking what they are doing, but there is something, they have some difficulties, some situations that are not liking. They don't find the space to express this difficulty, and they decide to leave. So we really have to find, as also Marika said, some moments, some situations where we can share, where we can realize if a volunteer has a problem and try to solve it. Another motivations that is something quite important is that sometimes we describe a task, we describe an experience. A volunteer comes because he's expecting something, and then they realize that the experience is completely different from what they were expecting. This is why at the start we really need to understand what a person is looking for and try to express very clearly what we are proposing, what we can give to them. A lot of times volunteers arrive and we just say, okay, good, we can start. We are not clear, volunteers are not clear about what they want, and the situation in general became quite complicated. I don't know, Marika, if you want to add something about that? Motivations because why volunteers are leaving?
Well, I guess that all the information you gave were quite, let's say, detailed, and they are probably the most reasons why. Maybe a thing I would add is that sometimes, for example, a volunteer starts doing this activity because has more free time, and maybe at some point there is, I don't know, an exam coming or a new job, and maybe they don't handle it anymore. In that case, I think it's really important also to try to let people continue volunteering, also if they're busy. So this is something that can be done. I mean, of course, maybe they start working like 20 hours, it depends, per week, or 5 hours, but it's always good to say to a volunteer, even if when they want to leave because of external reasons, to let them understand that they can always join and keep contributing with the shorter time they have available.
Yes, exactly. This is something very, very important. We have to accept what volunteers can offer us, because a lot of time what happen is that the life of the volunteers change. We are not able to accept it. We are not able to rethink about the task, rethink about the responsibilities, and so under this pressure people decide to leave. Maybe they didn't want to leave, maybe they were volunteering 10 hours per week, and now they need to volunteer just 3 hours per week, but we are not able to understand that, and so they decide to quit and leave all the activities that the way they are doing. So this is a very, very important point, Marika. Thank you for adding it. And yes, we already talked about it, but it's good to re-talk about that a little bit more. So the volunteers are not free, but they are priceless. This is different. People, the volunteers are not just people that are not paid, but they are really bringing a lot of values, also because they are doing things that if they should be paid, they would really cost a lot of money, and sometimes they are doing things that even paid people or employees can't do that, like because they can bring motivation, they can bring different experiences, or as you, Marika, said, maybe a lot of volunteers come after their job because they want to add something in their life, etc. This is really a value, is something priceless, and we need to recognize it. We really need to recognize it, because a lot of NGOs sometimes do this mistake and treat volunteers just like employees that are not paid. This is not what we are looking for. This is not works in a long term. Maybe in the short term can look that you can save money, but we really have to recognize it, and we really have to recognize concretely the volunteers. They have to be recognized for their effort. How to recognize it is up to you, is up to the organization. It depends of the organizations, it depends a lot of the volunteers, and it depends a lot of the people you have in front of you, the motivation that is bringing them here. A lot of people are just looking, for example, for certificates because they need it. They need it looking for a job. They need it for school. They need it for university. Other people are looking for something concrete, like T-shirts about the event you did, because then they can show T-shirt to friends and say, "I did this experience. Was very good." Other volunteers really appreciate awards or something like that, like concrete gifts, concrete gadgets, etc. There are others that are really don't looking for that, and they are looking for appreciation. They are looking for non-material things. We really need to understand it, because there are volunteers that, for example, are looking for a moment where the NGO can show the work they did, can say really thank you, etc. There are other volunteers that, for example, don't like it. They don't feel comfortable doing it. We really need to recognize it. We really need to understand what these volunteers are looking for. There are volunteers that really want to listen thank you every time they do something, and there are others that don't want to listen to it. It's up to them, but understand it is very, very important, and it's also up to you, up to your organization, up to what you are doing. The strategy is defined of sure according to the preferences of the volunteers, also according to the age. Normally, for example, young volunteer really appreciate if we give them gifts or something like that, a t-shirt, a hoodie, something concrete. Maybe old people, senior people, that volunteers, that they are not looking for this kind of things. Young volunteers, for example, are really looking for moments like a dinner together, a trip together, something like that. Not just because you are offering a dinner, but because you are organizing this moment. Maybe really young volunteers are looking for these moments because can be moments where they can go out, meet friends, etc. Maybe young volunteers, in our personal experience, are looking for experience like going to training, going to some training course when you can learn new things, meet new people, create networking. The way you can use to recognize volunteers can really be a lot. In the toolkit we are creating for this project that everybody of you will receive and can have a look in it. We wrote a lot of different recognize activities, recognize gifts, etc. you can use for your volunteers. And this is really an hard work, okay? But is really important. It's really important to spend time, for example, we are near Christmas time, for example, spend some time to understand which gift you can give to your volunteers, what they are expecting. They are expecting for a Christmas dinner, for a Christmas party, for a gift. They don't want. There are people that, for example, thinks that they don't deserve a gift, and they prefer that this money of the organization go to found a project, go to fund something. This is also good. It's important. It's really important to understand that. I don't know if Marika, do you want to add some personal experience about it, or?
Yeah, no, what I would add is that, of course, yes, it's really, really important, the recognition. Again, it's not because usually a volunteer, if it's doing this, there's, again, another motivation driving. It's not about price. It doesn't have a price, but recognition is something like very important also for, let's say, the team, because it's an occasion for for example, employees and the volunteers to spend a moment together. I'm a big fan of moments. I mean, of course, like, for example, having a memory tangible, like t-shirts, awards, and certificates are another thing, because they are needed. So if they're needed, it's good to give them. But in general, all the material things and tangible are nice because you bring them in your life for memory. But I'm a very big fan of moments and events together. I think this should be sort of mandatory when you have a volunteer to organize a moment to share. Eating, it's always the best way to do it. but of course, it's something simple. It can be something simple. But please, yeah, always try to see that you are giving some space to them, maybe once a week, or if not once a week, like once a month, to organize dinner, or to do something for them. Again, even like bring to the office some food and give them like the opportunity to do a break together, to spend some time together. It's really, really important, because that hour per week can be the driver and the motivation, a further one, to their work. Because people, when they feel like connected and recognize, they work with, let's say, a much stronger enthusiasm. And so there is also maybe a better environment. There are things that sometimes are really taken for granted, but they are fundamental, because we are all humans. We have this need of recognition. It's one of the basic, let's say, needs of the human being, the sense of recognition. In this case, it's even higher, because the volunteers are people who are doing it for free. And this is something that really doesn't have to be taken for granted, because it has a higher value from my perspective.
Yes, exactly. I agree. So we are going to the end. As I told you, we want to share also some practical things you can think to introduce in your NGO. So one is planning of volunteer program. This is also something that if you start to think about it, you can think, other work to do. I don't want to spend this time. I don't have this time. Maybe can look like that, but invest some good time in planning the program of the volunteer. In the long term, can really make a difference. Can really make a difference in your activity, in your NGO, in your projects. Okay, because the volunteer program must fit into the strategy of your organization. So this is something that you have to do. You can't look for other organizations. You can copy what other organizations are doing. Your program have to fit in your organization, in your vision, in your values, in your activities. And the program concretely defines the objective of what the volunteer, why you are looking for volunteer, what they have to do, where they are working, in which period, for how many hours, what you are expecting they will realize, with you or without you, just with events or every time in the office. It's important to understand that, to decide it, to be clear about that. Be clear and describe what you need, okay? What you are expecting that the volunteers are doing, because you have this need. A lot of NGOs are looking for volunteers, and when they find them, they think about what they can do. It's better if you think about your needs and you start to look for volunteers after you realize which are really your needs. Maybe, of course, you have to rethink every time about the program. When volunteers come, maybe you can realize that what you thought was not the best. You can change it, of course, you can continue change it, but try to start from this point. Also, try to understand if you are looking for a volunteer or for paid staff. This is important. Sometimes while you are planning the program of the volunteer, you can realize that maybe for this position you are not looking for a volunteer, but you are looking for a paid person, for a person that have a lot of skills, a lot of responsibilities. It's okay, but also realize it is very important. Realize it is very important, and also try to understand which person of the staff can follow this volunteer or not. This is also very important to really organize the job in this way. Describe the activity very well. a lot of volunteers leave the organizations because they arrive there and then they don't understand what organization is expecting, what they should do, what they don't should do. Is important to maybe also write it, create a vademecum, create a document with all the activities that you think that the volunteers can do. Is good, and take time to do that. Decide to do that. I don't know, once a year, every 6 months, every 2 months. I don't know. It's really depends. It's really up to you. It really depends on your organization or on your activity. But find a moment, decide it, share this moment with your staff, and decide to plan the program of the volunteer in a really detailed way. I don't know, Marika, if you have something to add.
Yes. No, I mean, it's really important what you said to, first of all, make sure that you can manage a volunteering program. And secondly, to distinguish it from an employee, because there are two different things. Of course, they're very connected because an employee has to have motivation in the job, but they're different. So always be honest to yourself as like an employer if you need to hire someone or if you're okay with the volunteers. And in general, the best thing, of course, is to have a good number of both, not to, let's say, go ahead just with volunteers, because otherwise you put the wrong pressure on them. I mean, they have to put a contribution to the boat. Let's use a metaphor, but they don't have to, let's say, handle it. Otherwise, it just doesn't go ahead. I mean, really, it's important because volunteers feel that. I mean, as you mentioned before, people know when you really want them because they have to bring value, and when you need them. They're two different things. One thing I would actually add is also, it's like a sort of summary of what you just said, but like it's really important not to improvise, because you need to have a good management on the management of the volunteers, to give to them the best experience ever and to have the most support. So if you, again, describe the program in a good way, and if you study also how to plan the volunteering program, and for this, like European projects support a lot, like the Comres one, but yes, it's something that really needs time, but then everything comes back. All the time you and all the effort you're putting to plan the volunteer program comes back. So don't put it at the end of your list. Put it in the middle or at the very beginning, because the added value that volunteer can bring is something really hard at some points, because it's work time, but at the same time, it's a human value, added value, and also like there are resources to like tackle the causes that the organizations are working on, and so on. So yeah, I think this point is very, very, very important. And also for the planning of volunteer program, of course, it's good to follow people who have knowledge about it. So inform yourself, use all the information you have, ask for advices, use toolkits, but don't improvise. I think this is a key point.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, I want to underline the fact that don't make too pressure on the volunteers because they can feel it. Give them responsibility. This is okay. A lot of volunteers, for example, like when you give them responsibilities because they feel that they are doing something important, that you trust them, etc. So this is okay, but always check if this responsibility is something they really want or is making pressure. If it starts to make pressure, this is something bad. This is something you have to change. Responsibilities in volunteers are okay, but they don't, as Marika said, they don't need to feel that they are bringing on their shoulder all the organization, and that if they need to leave, everything will collapse, because like that, the pressure is too much. The pressure is really too much. And just another idea we want to share with you. Of course, these are all ideas. This does not mean that tomorrow every NGO has to start to do all these things all together.
That would be
but
great.
yeah, but I think these are a lot of points you can start to think about. Start also to think which of these are best for you, which of all these ideas can start to help you in your organization. And of course, it will take a lot of time, but try to think about it, about all these things. So this is the monthly report. Of course, for example, this is a tool that is very up to you. If you are a small NGO with just 3 volunteers, maybe a monthly report is too much. If you are doing activities like once every 2 weeks, a monthly report is too much. This is just an idea to show you that it's important the work before planning, asking the volunteers what they are looking for, understand their motivations, etc. But also take some time to reflect at the end about what you are doing, what is going good, what is going bad, which are the positive aspects, what can be improved, how the volunteer felt, what they liked, what they didn't like, because it's important. And again, we said that a lot of time can look that is a waste of time. Maybe you have a lot of things to do and you think that sit and speak for 1 or 2 hours about what you did, etc., is just a waste of time. But in the long term, is not. In the long term, can really help you to analyze the situation and to create a good environment for volunteers, for new one, for keeping the one you are there to not leave, etc. You can do the reports in a very different ways. This is really up to you. You can speak with volunteers, create questionnaires, create a moment. Can be also an informal one. For example, as Marika said, create moments like an informal meeting, etc., when you can speak and share about your experience. This can also be a report. It doesn't mean that report is something boring. You can do it how you want, whatever you want, but we think this is something that can really help you to analyze and also restart the cycle, restart to plan, find new volunteer, ask them for motivation, etc.
Sara, can you repeat, please repeat the last sentence? Just the last thing you were saying, because I personally couldn't hear that. And I think it was very important. Yes.
Okay, sorry. So it was about the fact that this is like a circle. So starting with the report, starting with the end of a volunteer experience or the end of an event, etc., can really help you to restart again, to look for new volunteers, to restart about motivation, etc. So the report is not like just to finish an experience. It's not like how we have to do that at the end of the year, at the end of the month, but try to look at this as this report like also like the start of a new point, the start for looking for volunteers, etc., and to in general to try to do the things always in a better way. Marika, do you want to add something about that?
Yes. Well, there is another thing I would actually add, because I don't have anything to add to the monthly report, because I think you said everything needed and it was more than clear.
Yeah, I think we are going to the end of this webinar. So if you want to add something in general and then close.
just the one thing, like about communication. I mean, another important thing in volunteering, I think, is to use the channels to communicate with people who don't know about this sport. So let the volunteers be sort of ambassadors, because first of all, it gives recognition, like being shown in social media and for what they're doing, and it's something with a very high value. And secondly, it can be an opportunity maybe to involve other people, because again, from my side, one of the reasons why I have started volunteering a bit late for what I could have done. I mean, I've done lots of activities for others, for my community, but it wasn't exactly with maybe a non-profit organization, simply because I didn't know them. So it's important to use communication, because it has a very powerful value to involve people that maybe you don't know, but around the corner there's someone who wants to support a lot your cause, but doesn't know that they can do that. So communication is really, really another key point. If you don't have an Instagram page, for example, create it and show the faces and the people who are in your organizations, because they are the ones to be how can I say, that can really share from an inside perspective. So from my side, I think yeah, that's it. I mean, I want to really thank you for all the sharing, because it was at least for me very full of information, important ones. And I guess, as you mentioned, maybe to start from tomorrow with the following these rules can look a bit like too much if you haven't done it. But I think it's really, can I say, it's worth it to follow these advices. So yeah, thank you, Sara,
Yes,
for
exactly.
the
So
presentation.
thank you, Marika, for adding also this part of communication. Of course, we can speak about volunteering, etc. Maybe doing a training course of 1 week can even not be enough. But thank you for adding also that. I want to close looking at the comments in the Facebook group. Letonski said that he's following from Lesotho. Thank you for following us and sharing. Where are you from? And also Bianca did a comment, wrote, so we can give them an experience of life and being a community, right? And yes, I think that we can really summarize this meeting of today, saying that in the end, what we want to offer to the volunteers as this sense of community, this sense of being part of something when they can feel really part of something. Maybe we didn't speak a lot about it, but of course, this is something very important to make the volunteer feeling part of a community, of something where they can
Yes.
they can really feel that they are doing something not alone. Also in this period of time, in this after COVID, etc. I think that offering people to feel part of a group is very important, and we have a very important role in that. Yeah, I don't know, Marika, if you want just to add just one last thing, and then I think we can close.
Okay, I have started with a quote, because I really like quotes in my life. So I will actually end with a quote, which is only what you give is yours. So I think it's quite enough. I don't need to add anything. What you give is yours, and you will get back in maybe not with money in the case of volunteers, but with a very, very, yeah, he has such a power that it doesn't have like a value like a monetary one. So
Yeah,
it's something
exactly.
very, very special. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Marika. Thank you very much for joining us, for starting the webinar. Sorry again
Thank you.
for being late, for the connection. This is something that can occur, so also about it. It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. Today we spoke a lot about what we have to do or not to do about volunteers, but we always think that is you have to try. You have to try. Maybe you can make mistake. but really try to switch your mind and try to start to think about volunteering in this with this mindset, with these ideas that we brought today, and it's okay. And also, like Marika, I want to go to restart with the start of the presentation. The best thing to work with volunteers is thinking about you. I think that quite everybody of us volunteer someday. Try to start from your experience, think what was good, what was bad, and start from this experience you had. And yes, of course, I think we can close and say goodbye to everybody. Thank you very much for following us, and we really hope that this was useful for you. And thank you, Julia, for hosting us in the Erasmus Plus Youth Academy. And okay, good.
Thank you
good
to
night.
everyone. Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good
Bye.
evening.